Back in Illustrator, I'll set up my summer boot file so I can test all my repeats. I'll set up the drawing file to include a page for each texture and pattern repeat. First, I'll open my final finished drawing of the shoe. I'll also keep the resources file open so I can include all my new textures in that file. I'm going to make 7 copies of this layer. I'll do this in the Layers panel by dragging the drawing layer to the new layer icon. Or you can go to the drop-down menu at the top right of the Layers panel and duplicate drawing layer. This option is available if you have the drawing layer selected. I have done this 7 more times. I have renamed the layers to the textures I'll use in each. Now I'll add 7 more artboards. Click onto the Artboard tool to open the options for these and just add 7 more boards by pressing onto the new Artboard icon in the option bar. Or you can go to the Artboards in the panel. This is normally linked to the Layers panel. I have dragged both out of the panel's docking area. You also have the option to rearrange the artboards here in the Artboard panel drop-down menu. Rearrange all artboards or here at the bottom of the panel. Now, open the Layers panel again and lock all layers except the first copy. Select this and drag it to the next artboard. Lock this layer and unlock the next, and drag that to the next artboard. Continue until you have all 7 artboards populated with your drawing. I have supplied mine in the resources for this module if you wish to use it for reference. We'll fill the first shoe with the spot and stripe vector repeats. I'll first lock all layers except the second page, the one I have renamed Vector AI Pattern. I'll quickly remind you about color change in Illustrator. I'll go back to my Assets file and make another copy of the swatches I created in Module 4, Lesson 1. I'll make my new color chips here, and I'll include a cream so I can demonstrate how to change the white. I select the pattern swatches and the color chips. Now I'll select the color wheel in the option bar to open the dialog box. The first action I'll do is double-click next to the white to make this editable. Now I can simply swap the colors. Once I've accepted these, you'll see them loaded into the swatches panel. I've copied and pasted this spot and stripe swatch into my updated summer boot file. Can you see how it immediately goes into the swatches panel when I do this? Now to change the color of my shoe. With my direct selection tool, the white arrow, keyboard shortcut A, I will select one panel. Now I'll go to the Select drop-down menu. I may have mentioned this earlier, but it is good to hear it again in another situation. Select Same fill color, and anything that is that color will be selected, and I can change that fill to the new pattern. While I have these selected, I'll quickly check the scale of the repeat. I'll right-click my mouse or go to Object, Transform, Scale in the drop-down menu to open the Scale dialog box. Remember, I only want to scale the pattern, not the object, so I uncheck the Transform Object option and only leave the Transform Pattern checked. Now I select Preview to see if I am happy with this. I'll do the same Select Same action for the lining fill. Here, I'll use the stripe and I'll rotate the fill. Again, remember to uncheck the Rotate object here. Repeat this Select Same with the stitching, but this time select Same Stroke color and the stitching will all be selected. Change the color of the stitching to match the print. You can delete the pinked edge now by selecting Same Stroke Weight if you've been disciplined enough to make the pinked edge stroke weight different. Or you can simply select each of those strokes and delete them manually. Now to check all my photoshopped bitmap repeats, I am going to place my Photoshop file in Illustrator. A placed file is still linked to the native format. The reason I do this is so I can still edit the file and change colors without having to reopen it each time. Let me show you. Before I start, I will modify the heel of the suede shoe to make it a wedge heel. Now, in the File drop-down menu, I select Place, and the File browser will open. Here, I'll select the file I want to open, so my light grey suede.psd file. Before I choose Place in the browser, I need to make sure that Link is selected to keep my link active. Once I select this, you will see that my cursor is loaded with the thumbnail, and when I click, I will place the image. Remember, I did this in Module 1 with the hand sketch. That does feel like a while ago now. I want to test this repeat. I'll drag this image into my swatches panel. Can you see how it just won't load into the swatches? This image needs to be made part of this file, so I need to embed the image. This option is available in my option bar here. But first I'll make a copy, so I still have the original linked file for editing purposes. Once I've embedded the image in this file, I can drag it into the swatches panel and check the repeat. Here we are. I'm scaling this to check if the repeat is okay. I'll right-click my mouse and go to Object, Transform, Scale to open the Scale dialog box. I've scaled mine to 50% of the original size, and I'm happy with the way the repeat is looking. I'll fill the shoe with this now. My shoe is grouped, so I'll use my white arrow, the Direct Selection tool, or the Group Selection tool to select one panel. Now I will go to the Select drop-down menu, select Same Fill Color, and anything that is that color will fill now. Let me try the cork repeat now. I'll just place this file and copy and embed it. This looks great. I don't even need to scale the cork. Now, I would like to demonstrate how I change colors in a way that I can easily edit the swatch whenever I need to. This method is non-destructive. It is only a layer effect. So, I'll select the original swatch, the one I didn't embed. I can see this because it has this cross running through it here when I select it. I'll go up to the option bar here and Edit Original. This will take me to Photoshop, or will open Photoshop if the program and file aren't already open. Here I'll introduce you to some of these layer effects. But first I'll adjust the brightness and contrast. This gives me a better base to work with. I'll go to Image in the menu bar, Adjustments, and Brightness and Contrast. Here I'm looking for a little more depth in the shadows and white in the light colors. Once this is done, I can change the color of the suede. Let's have a look at all these options over here at the bottom of the Layers panel. Can you see this symbol here? It is a circle that has a dark side and a light side. When I select the down arrow, there is a list of effects. I will use Hue Saturation to change the color of this suede swatch. The best results for changing the color are when I select the Colorize option. This allows me to choose a hue and add depth, saturation, and tint, lightness or darkness to the color. If I click onto the eye here, I can toggle between visible and not visible. I can also add another hue saturation effect layer to do an alternative color, or I can edit this one. Have a look at how I do this. I use this method because I can easily modify colors and save changes. Hue saturation is the layer effect I use mainly for color changes. There are other transparency options that I can use in Illustrator, which I'll demonstrate later. Why don't you have a little play with all the other options? And remember to make the layers you are not using invisible to see the true impact of the new layer effect. I'll save this now and show you what happens when we go back to Illustrator. A dialog box appears, asking me if I'd like to update the file. Of course I would. Once again, I'll copy and embed the new color and drag this into the swatches panel. And here it is in the shoe. I've just made all the strokes tonal to soften the drawing. Let's have a look at the crocodile skin. Here I'll do an extra layer adjustment. First, I'll adjust the curves. You can read more about this on the Adobe website. Just click onto the link in the transcript below for an explanation on curves and tonal adjustment. Once you add a hue saturation adjustment layer, you may want to adjust the curves again. As I have said before, there is nothing that is right or wrong, just what suits your style and drawing. Have a look at how this looks in our shoe. The crocodile skin has an obvious direction, and I will need to change the direction of the pattern in the panels. I'll transform rotate these. You can either right-click your mouse to bring up the submenu here, or you can go to Object, Transform, and Rotate in the drop-down menu to open the Rotate dialog box. Now, I need to deselect Object Transform here, as you only want the pattern to rotate, not the whole shape, and then check Preview. Now I'll highlight the degree of rotation, and I can use my keyboard direction keys up and down to view the changes. This concludes these 3 videos in Lesson 2 on image size, textures, and editing bitmap image colors. In the next lesson, I will take you through some more complex prints and adding more colors and layers in Photoshop, as well as using the gradient tool to add shadows and highlights, and the transparency adjustments in Illustrator to add texture to prints. As you must know by now, I'm happy to answer all questions you may have in relation to the videos, and I'd be happy for you to share files with me for whatever reason you choose. Look forward to catching up in Lesson 3.